First of all, thank you to Fremont Bank. In Fremont, this is absolutely gorgeous. The red carpet has been rolled out, and I don't mean for us, we mean for you. And you ought to get on down here. And if you haven't already made your plans, if you're not already on your way down here, please do so because, first of all, this is Summit 4. We love these. These have been absolutely unbelievable experiences. However, this one already promises to be different than any of the first three. We are rooftop, downtown Fremont, looking at what appears to be the entire Bay Area on a sparkling 80-degree day. Willard and Dibs for the next couple hours, and then at 4 o'clock our brethren will arrive, and we will dive as deep as possible into Warriors free agency.
Well, it's going to get deep, and it's gotten really deep since you were gone. And, you had DeAnthony Melton, you had Slow-Mo, and then Buddy Hield happened, and all eyes on Lauri Markkanen. Will they or won't they? Should they or shouldn't they? And really, before we get to any of that, I'm looking forward to getting your feelings and your thoughts on Klay Thompson. And I know his dad's going to join us at 3 o'clock, but That was really, something that you and I both had kind of come to the realization of over the last couple of months, the fact that Klay was going to leave, but it doesn't really hit you until Klay actually does leave, and then Klay posts his message, and then Steph has comments, and now you see him in a Mavericks uniform, and he's starting to think a little bit differently about the reality of what's going to happen.
It does hit you, and you remember a week and a half ago, and we had some intel, obviously, and it was out there, but on Friday, whatever that was, what's the date? 8th, whatever, June 28th, 29th, whatever that was, that Friday a week and a half ago, the last time we did a show, and we said this will be our last show with Klay Thompson as a Warrior, and started to sort of pay homage at that time, and it does hit you different, even though you know it's coming. When you start to see the social media posts and the superimposing of the jersey, and then I think also, let's be real, Warrior fans, a little bit of fear starts to set in, where you're like, oh God, he's going to be in the corner in a Mavericks jersey with Luka and Kyrie handling the ball out at the top. And is he going to shoot 43% from three this year in a Mavericks uniform because they're asking him not to be a 2? They're asking him to be a 3/4, and he's just going to sit out there and knock down threes. And maybe this isn't going to feel very good. I get it. All of those things settle in. But the more we've learned about it, Dibs, it feels like it was inevitable. I'm always a big believer. This is any workplace. This is not just, hey, does the employee get what he wants, get what she wants? Do they want to be there? If I'm hiring, I don't want people who don't want to be there. And whether it's fair or foul, this arrived at a spot where Klay Thompson felt like his mental health needed something else. And once the Warriors knew that, they were absolutely right not to offer him the world. They were absolutely right to just say, hey, we've got other priorities. And it feels cold, and it feels like it lacks all sentimentality. But the bottom line is this, for a number of reasons, and we can get into all of them, this reached a point of inevitability, and it reached a point where I do think this was the right decision, probably for both sides.
Yeah, I think so in the short term, but I wonder about the long-term effect it has on, for example, Steph Curry.
Yep.
And, you heard some of his comments about, what he wants to do. He wants to be a Warrior forever, and we can get into some of the sound a little bit later, but the idea that, Klay was done wrong, and whether or not Klay was done wrong or not doesn't matter. What matters to me is the perception. And if Klay feels like they didn't do right by him, and if Steph and Draymond think, well, the organization could have done more or they could have treated him better, if that perception is out there, then it becomes more damaging than just trying to replace Klay Thompson, the player. And I don't know if Steph feels that way, but that to me is the one part of this that we're going to have to wait and see how it affects the current players, and mainly Steph Curry, because Steph's got 2 more years in his deal. And if Steph looks back at Klay Thompson's time here and he feels like maybe they didn't handle it the right way, that could have a negative effect on what they do going forward.
Well, we'll get into that because there were some comments from France and from Vegas, from Steph Curry I guess they're not in France yet. They're in Vegas. But there were some comments as they get ready for all of the Team USA dealings that I think raise your eyebrows as a Warrior fan.
Yeah.
You go, hold on a second. Is Steph Curry starting to plan his exit? It's very early. I don't think that's happening. I don't think he wants that. But the scenario now presents itself for that possibility. If it goes a certain way, do I think a message was being sent to the organization? Yes, I do.
Oh, yeah.
We'll get into that. But just to kind of stay on the Klay thing, I wonder what you think about this, because when something does get to the end, you take stock, right? Any relationship ends, and you kind of do well, what happened?
Right.
All right, so let's look back. What happened? Do you have a clear understanding or a feeling for what Klay was mad about? It's like I sit here and I go, okay, what's the list? The list was the Warriors had an argument with him about his rehab. Then the Warriors signed Jordan Poole and Andrew Wiggins, and he didn't love that. And the specter of Jordan Poole becoming a starter, and he didn't like that. And then there was shot selection. And then there was a 2-year, $48 million offer, which offended him at the time. Turns out it was actually beyond fair in terms of what he ended up getting.
Right.
This long list, and I'm sure there's more.
Playing time, role, shot selection.
You get sent to the bench.
Yeah.
You get sent to the bench. You have closed-door meetings with Steve Kerr, and you have to keep doing it over and over, which tells me that whatever meetings happened before that, you didn't come out feeling satisfied.
Yeah.
All of these things go on. And if I try to put my head into a $43 million per year future Hall of Fame brain, can those things be seen as offensive? I guess.
Yeah.
I understand it.
I totally get it.
But now you go, okay, can you see why the Warriors were like, yeah, that's what we're going to do. That's what we're going to do. You can totally see it. Can you look at Joe Lacob's position? And this is what I would ask Klay Thompson, and I bet I know how he'd answer it. But can you look at Joe Lacob's position and say, we gave you $218 million for 178 basketball games, and we feel like that was not a great investment, and so, yes, sentimentality has left town. If you ask me if I can see that position, oh hell yeah.
Of course.
Hell yeah.
And it's not about sentimentality. It comes down to business. And you look at where Klay Thompson is right now and where the team is and what they can afford to pay him. They could have given him 2 years and $48 million. And if they did that, that would have hamstrung them and made it so that they weren't able to do anything else in free agency. And that means no Melton. That means no Kyle Anderson. It means no Buddy Hield. It means you're bringing back Klay Thompson and maybe a couple of vet mins, and your team's not better, and that's the way that's going to go. And so you wanted to have some financial optionality to be able to do what you wanted to do. And remember what Joe Lacob said to Tim Kawakami a few months ago about Plan 1 and Plan 1A, and they were getting underneath the second apron of the salary cap, and they've done that. So anything beyond that, I think for this year is maybe extra, because the one thing about getting below the second apron is once you're below it, you can go back above it next year. So maybe it's a 1 year lapse where, you go to Steph Curry and you say, look, Steph, we had to get below the second apron. We've done that. We couldn't get Lauri Markkanen. I don't think that they're going to, but they still might. And this is just going to be the way it's going to go. Do your best this year, and then next year we can talk about extending you, or we can talk about what we're going to do in free agency or through a trade to go back above the second apron next year, but they couldn't be a repeater team above that. So all those things, I think, lead to the same conclusion about Klay Thompson, which was, Klay, you're not a priority. We do want to keep you, and, we'd love to keep you for, honestly, about what he signed with Dallas, but Klay wanted to feel more loved. He wanted to feel more valued, and I think he felt that from Dallas by the fact that on July 2nd, he signed with them.
Isn't it the hardest thing in life? Self-awareness. It's freaking impossible.
Yeah.
None of us see ourselves for all of the warts and flaws that we all have. If anybody's ever been to therapy, how often do they say, I bought you a gift. It's a mirror. Like, take a look at what's actually happening. How do others see you? I bet most people do not see themselves the way others see you.
I got no mirrors in my house.
It's very hard.
Broke them all.
Like, I'm sitting here telling you, like, this is, I mean, for everybody to be that vulnerable is really hard. And some do it better than others. And that is, if I've got a flaw to point out in Klay Thompson's game, that's it. That's the one where it's just like, dude, you gotta be a little bit more whimsical about where this sits. Even in Steph Curry's comments in Vegas, he talked about how I still feel like I'm an elite player, but at the same time, I'm going on high school visits with my daughter.
Right.
She was a baby when we started this whole thing. We're now looking at high schools. I have gray hairs that are growing. And all of those things signify, not as good at basketball. And that's one thing I don't know if Klay Thompson, and maybe it is his route, he doesn't have a family. He doesn't have those markers around him in his house that remind him, like, hey, times are changing, man. So I get it. I have compassion for it. But but at the same time, you have to have it. You have to, because, like, this is the one thing I would imagine for every Warrior fan who shed a tear when these Instagram posts start coming out. How would you have it if it were the other way? What would you say about Mike Dunleavy today?
If they'd given him 2 and 48?
No, keep going. If they'd given him 3. If they'd given him 4. What if they'd given him the Laker offer? 4 years, $80 million. You could still be under the second apron. How you feeling? Anybody want to criticize Mike Dunleavy for that move?
Of course.
Of course you would.
I mean, where do I sign up?
There you go. So
we're going to run it back? You were a 10 seed and we're going to run it back?
So you can't have it both ways. You can't think that's a bad move and then get starry-eyed and bleedy heart over Klay Thompson. Like, again, you can feel that without saying that it was the wrong thing to do.
Yeah, I think that it was the right thing to do, and I don't feel weepy over the hard reality of what they did. I think it's something that they had to do, and honestly, I think it's something that he had to do. If you're Klay and you feel all that way, and we can go all the way back to what you talked about with the rehab, where the team wanted him to rehab in a certain way from the torn ACL, and he did it his own way, and then he blew out his Achilles.
Yep.
And the team was probably like, Dr. Rick Celebrini's probably wringing his hands, and I don't think he was there at the time. He might have been, but the frustration was there that Klay didn't do it the way they wanted him to do it, and so now you got to pay him an extra year of rehab time where you're not playing basketball, and then all the other things that happen. I'm sure the relationship, as any relationship does over that period of time, it gets fractured, it gets broken, and so you reach the end of it, and yeah, there are hard feelings, and it's okay for there to be hard feelings. How could there not be after 13 years?
Yeah. I mean, it reaches that point, and then you start even thinking about the decision that he ended up making. And I never know if these deals that are reportedly offered, is that actually accurate? Did the Lakers, and we'll ask Michael Thompson about this at 4 years, $80 million versus Mavericks, 3 years, $50 million. Why would Klay do that? I do take that as just a guy saying that that's my best shot for a championship. But B, and this is another thing that's inevitable, like, I look at that as Klay Thompson being like, hey, Warriors, you didn't want me. Okay, I'm coming now for you. Now I'm coming for you. I am playing with Luka and Kyrie, and I'm going to have all of everything in my holster when I get back to Chase Center. That actually, as a Warrior fan, is the hardest part for me. It's one thing about moving on. It's another thing to feel like, and by the way, I'm now targeting you. You are now, the Warriors, are they not enemy number one for Klay Thompson?
I'm sure that they are. And come on, Klay, come and get us. And you know what I think they should do? Dot him.
Dot him, of course.
Dot him. First trip to the hole.
For the knees.
First trip to the basket in your Mavericks jersey. Mm-hmm. You know what, Klay? Playtime's over, Klay.
I don't think there's going to be a lot
Flagrant 2.
There's not going to be a lot of trips to the basket in a Dallas Mavericks uniform for
Okay,
Klay Thompson.
here's an idea.
He's going to play like Guru plays at the rec center. Like he's just going to be parked out there in the corner.
First corner 3, you put Zaza back in his uniform and let him stagger underneath him like he did to Kawhi.
Yeah.
Let's go. You want to be a Mavericks? Be a Mavericks. We're coming for you.
Yep.
You coming for us?
And here we are.
We're coming for you, Klay.
Here we are. Yeah. So in the end, to me, this isn't about picking sides. But if I'm going to look at these two situations objectively, the Warriors' view on this and Klay's view on this, here's how I'll say it. I'm not going to take a side, but if I were ever blessed with a one-on-one conversation with Klay, my angle would be, dude, what really made you so mad? What really made you so mad? Are you justified in being this knocked off kilter based on what the Warriors did? What did they do that was so wrong? I mean, if I asked you that, what did the Warriors do to Klay that was so wrong? I'm kind of struggling to come up with an answer for that.
A number of things.
What?
If you're Klay,
No, what do you think?
Oh, what do I think?
What did the Warriors, if anything, what did they do to Klay that really warranted this kind of frustration?
For me, there's not a thing, but I look at things obviously much differently. I look at a guy who's made $250 million playing basketball, and I know money's not everything, and his mentals were a big part of it, but they didn't do anything to him other than ask him to come off the bench and ask him to stop shooting shots that maybe weren't good shots. And, other than that, I don't think that they did anything to him. They asked him to be a basketball player and be a part of the team. And he tried his best last year and the year before to do that, but he was obviously fighting through a lot of stuff mentally that prevented him from really being the Klay Thompson that we all know. So what did they do to him in actuality? Nothing. But if I put myself into Klay's shoes, you can look at a number of things that he felt like were slights, whether it's coming off the bench, whether it's, groaning about his shot selection. It was a low ball 2-year offer when Draymond got 4 years. Why doesn't he get a 4-year deal like Draymond did? You could look at it from Klay's perspective and see a number of things that he felt like were slights to what he had given the organization.
I mean, a 4-year, this is why I get into self-awareness. I mean,
Wiggins got 4 years. Jordan Poole got $140 million, for God's sake.
These are people who haven't even sniffed their 30th birthday yet.
Right.
When they signed it, at least I know
Jordan Poole is as good of a player as Klay is?
Of course not. And they dumped him the second that they signed it. Like, they didn't sign it because necessarily they wanted him to play basketball for the Warriors for the rest of his life.
Oh, yeah?
They signed it to retain the asset. And they were able to wiggle their way right out of that money like 2 seconds after they signed it, right? I mean, that's the thing, is it's hard for us as human beings to see that each one of these situations is totally different. I think it's very simplistic if Klay Thompson is like, well, why did Jordan get this? Why did Andrew get that? And why did Draymond get this? And I would answer and say, because each one of those are totally different people at totally different ages, and each of those contracts were signed at a totally different time.
Yeah.
Like, Klay, you want to know what the number one reason why Klay Thompson's not a Warrior anymore?
It's timing.
The number one reason is because they missed the playoffs last year.
Yeah.
Those contracts were all signed coming off of completely different scenarios. Andrew and Jordan were signed coming off of a ring. That's a completely different scenario. And Draymond was signed coming off of a Game 6 second-round exit and is a completely different player who, by the way, I know people still are just, boy, we're quick to the Draymond contract's a bad contract. I'm not there yet at all. I understand why people think that because he cratered last season emotionally, but he didn't crater as a basketball player. If he plays well. Klay Thompson.
Well, that's a big if.
Well, but
he missed a third of the year.
No doubt.
By his own doing.
And that is
or undoing.
And that is a factor in this. But fair or not, do you agree with this statement? When playing basketball, Draymond is a better portion of his former self than Klay is right now. Just the basketball.
It's close. It's close. And
I think Draymond
well,
is
to
a
say
higher
win
percentage.
playing basketball,
Well,
I think takes out the biggest factor in the conversation because Draymond Green has a hard time playing basketball.
Well, over the 5 years, so did Klay.
Well, just in the 1 year of the Draymond contract right now, if you looked at Draymond contract so far, 1 year in, it's a bad contract.
Agreed.
0 for 1.
Agreed. But if I were to sign either one of them to 3 going forward,
Right now?
yeah, which one are you feeling better about in terms of basketball performance?
I would probably sign, it's close. I mean, for the same money, 3 years and 75 from now going forward, the market would tell you that Draymond Green would be the one because Klay got 3 and 50?
Right, 3 and
58? 3
No,
and 50, yeah.
3 and 50.
So the market would tell you that Draymond is more valuable.
And is a way, way better defensive player. Like, that's, to me, when you look like this conversation, and I know it'll come up after 4 o'clock when the guys all get here, but Bonte and Joe this morning talking a lot about, is this team better right now than they were at the end of last season? And I have to split it into 2 answers. Defensively, yes.
For sure.
Offensively, nope.
Right.
Not yet. Right now, they are a worse offensive team than they were last year. But they're a way better defensive team, and I think that's probably still early in free agency a better building block right now is to be better on the defensive side than the offensive side.
Yeah, I wonder about that.
Well,
especially when
Boston was a great defensive team.
Right, but they also had 2 guys who are unguardable offensively.
Absolutely, but
one of the best defensive players in the game.
But I look at Dallas and I go, great offensive team, defensive team, and when you get to the end, what happens? Yes, Boston is well-rounded. They're the best team.
Right.
But to me, if I'm going to build on something, I'm going to take younger players and players who are defensive-minded when your core players are aging. Steph and Klay cannot play defense anymore, and Jordan Poole could not play defense, and Chris Paul is not much of a defender. And so right now, you look at what was surrounding these guys, they've got to, and we were told this. We were told this when we were at Chase Center a couple of weeks ago talking it out, that as they are on draft night, one of the big things that they wanted to achieve, especially in the backcourt, they had to be a better defensive team. That was a tip that they were about to go get Melton.
Yeah.
We obviously didn't know that yet.
And you're hoping that Melton can be healthy enough to play.
Sure.
He's a guy with legitimate back issues.
Sure.
So, I mean, you're dealing with a guy who's got injury concerns. Kyle Anderson flat out cannot score. Buddy Hield cannot defend. So, I mean, if you're a hockey team, I'd like your chances because you can sub offense to defense on the fly. But this is going to be interesting to see what team they put out there that's good offensively that's also bad defensively and vice versa.
You think they're done making moves?
I hope they're not. I hope that Lauri Markkanen happens. And you know what? If they want 4 first-round picks, send them 4 first-round picks. You want 5, not 6, not 7.
I mean, you're
them picks.
You're heading for your daughter's going to be in college by the time some of these first-round picks actually happen. If the Warriors send that many, they don't have that many to send out. You're going to be in 2040 before you know it. But
that's when she's going to go to college. 2040.
But I'm with you.
2040, bro. 2040.
2040.
It's funny because Steiny, and I know we got to go, but
no, we're good.
Steiny earlier was talking about a pick in 2030, and I thought about that, and the idea of 2030 dude, 2030? Yeah, we can't be 6 years away from 2030.
2030.
Dude, 2030?
Little man will be driving. Little man will be driving in 2030.
Yeah, I mean.
Yeah.
Be driving me.
Yeah.
Seriously, with my cataracts.
Well, and I'm with you. When people talk about mortgaging the future, that future for me, that's too far into the future for me to give a rip. Absolutely. Yeah. I'm all in on Lauri Markkanen. However, you may get him, you may not. I know you said you hope they're not. Do you think they're done?
Yes. I think they're done.
Okay, I don't. And I'll tell you why. I think there's been a clue. There's been a clue based on the moves that have already been made that they at least feel confident that more is coming. And I'll tell you why coming up in a minute. Michael Thompson's going to join us in a half hour. We're at this beautiful, beautiful branch.
Did I lie?
You did not. The flagship branch of Fremont Bank in Fremont. And the crowd's starting to gather. A special love for all of you who came well before the summit to hang out with just me and Dibs here for a little bit until 4 o'clock. So rooftop deck, beautiful day, beautiful view. It's all coming. The day is all set up for us, and we're looking forward to absolutely all of it. All guests on the 95.7 The Game guest line appear on the River Islands guest line. Isn't it time for you to discover the islands? River Islands in Lathrop. Michael Thompson in a half hour. Coming up next, we continue the discussion. We'll absolutely welcome your phone calls, 888-957-9570. I'll tell you why I do think the moves they've already made possess a little clue that more are coming. That's next. It's Willard and Dibs.
Have you been in a car accident? Children.